Grief, death, funerals, often taboo subjects, only now coming to light. Joining us now is Julie Plater. She is the Public Relations Coordinator and Genesis Bereavement Facilitator at Rose Funeral Home. That's in Newmarket. So welcome to What She Said.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're here to help answer some commonly asked questions about funerals. But first, there's something new happening that I think is really neat, and it's planting a tree along with the Lake Simcoe Conservation Foundation. You have connected for a tree memorial program, which sounds so wonderful. Tell us about that.
My husband actually connected with the Lake Simcoe Conservatory. So what they do is every service that we provide, we plant a tree. And we work closely with them. So we're very environmentally friendly that way. We offer Canadian-made caskets and environmentally made caskets free of glues, etc. So anything that's environmentally friendly that's an option for everyone should you be buried. And BioCern is a new product. It came out of LA. And it's wonderful because, and I always go back to, if grandma loved her roses at home, for instance, and, when you are cremated, which cremation rates are at 80% now, give or take in Ontario, you can take a portion of her cremated remains and put it in this BioCern and have a rose bush, and she can grow into that rose bush, and you can take care of it. And it's kind of like a prolonging her memories and her life and your memories with her. So
what a wonderful idea!
Yeah, that is.
I think I want that done.
Would you like to be a tree, or would you like to be a rose bush? What would you like to be?
I don't know.
Think about it. I'd like
a lilac tree.
That'd be nice. Something long lasting, right?
Something long lasting without claws.
So listen, you mentioned something. You said cremation rates are at 80%. When you say that, do you mean that 80% of people are now choosing to be cremated rather than buried?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. It's very common now to be cremated. With religion is not so much in tradition. It's all up to the family and what they want and what they choose. And so cremation rates in Ontario are pushing to 80%. So it's very common for people to choose to be cremated.
So when do you think that changed? Because in my grandparents' generation, I mean, it wasn't really thought about much. It was the odd person, but somewhere along the way it changed. And I myself have thought about what would I do, and I never bought a funeral plot at 20 years old. So I think now I don't know where I would go.
Right. With the revolutionary changes in tradition, we don't keep that tradition anymore. Our grandchildren. Funerals are more so for the people who are bereaved, right? And people come to visit those families, and so with that change and with development, a lot of the original plans for funerals have changed, and so cremation went up on the rise. It was more convenient. It's much quicker. And easier to preserve. And so you would have your visitation. So you could still go and have a visitation. You can have your services, etc. And you can have yourself be cremated, or your family would choose that for you. That probably changed more at the turn of the 50s, after the baby boomers, right? And it's getting more popular. It's convenient.
I think it must also be partially that we're using up the land.
Right.
I mean, maybe not in Canada, but I know in Japan, they have, is it Columbaria?
Yeah.
So, which are just basically burial vaults, but they're for the urn. It's like but it's almost like a big condo building.
Right.
People are going and they're building because there is no ground. Other places they're stacking caskets, 20 deep. So what happens when there is no more land?
I actually posted something very interesting online on my own Facebook page. What are cemeteries for? Back in the day, in the good old days, we would have cemeteries and we would go visit our loved ones, or even further back, you wouldn't visit. Per se, you don't know what to do with the body because the soul's not there. Whatever traditional rites they had, so they would bury or throw them out to sea, and so there's a lot of traditional rites that were held, and it changes over time, and having that change, especially with the populace growing in major cities. We don't know, but this is why we're more environmentally friendly now, and we want to have something. We want to hold on to that life. We want to have something, that we can continue with that tradition. So real estate for cemeteries is very far and few between, and especially with everyone. The space running out back in the day would be churches. In your own church, wherever your parish was, that is where you would be buried in your family. You'd have your own plots. There's all sorts of options there. So it's very things will change over time. We don't know where the future lies for that.
Well, I know. I think we're going to have to start thinking about it, because I think the statistic is like 55, 60 million people die every year.
Right.
So that's about like just under 1% of the planet's total population, or all of England's. So that's, when you think about it, that's like there are no places to put people. I saw at the funeral convention, which was recently in Kelowna, you can actually have ashes pressed into a diamond
Right.
now.
In Switzerland, that's right.
And so they do it in Switzerland?
Yeah. Yeah. So you would ship off. You would have to actually use all of the cremated remains. Whereas with biocern, you could take apart and you could plant a tree, etc. Because it's so compressed, you would use all of the cremated remains, and it could be pressed into a diamond, and you can use that diamond for jewelry or what have you.
It's remarkable.
Yeah. So biocern, if let's say I wanted to do that, then I would have to pick where that tree would go?
Not per se if it were you. Your family would usually do that. A lot of families would choose the cottage, for instance. You can place the biocern next to a tree that's already established. There are so many options with biocern, just to have yourself uprooted into something else that's living. And it doesn't have to be all of the cremated remains. So there's so many options. We have the little Pandora. It's not Pandora, but those little charms that you get with Pandora. You can have that made into glass. There are people who are tattooing cremated remains into their own bodies. Just anything to preserve that legacy.
And Rose Funeral Home has been serving Newmarket in the area for 175 years. So you're obviously at the forefront of all the trends.
Every year there are new trends, and you have to keep up. You have to keep up because people nowadays, is how I like to explain it to people, is the services that you can provide. Putting together a funeral is almost like putting together a wedding. You have your reception. It's not just the funeral. Before we'd go and the bereaved would go and pay respects to their loved ones, and now it's more so. There's slideshows, there are videos, there are memories, keepsakes, all sorts of things.
So you can help people coordinate all of that, and also help them connect with grief counseling services.
Right. So our team's very, very well organized with providing that funeral service. In 1996, my father-in-law, Glenn Plater, he brought in Genesis, a bereavement program, which was created by Mr. John Sainer, who's kind of passed off to a lot of funeral homes in Canada. And so what this is aftercare is what we call it. So aftercare is taking care of the family after, because the funeral is the funeral and the service is the service. And after that is when it really hits you. And that bereavement counseling is when it counts, right? Because you want to take care of that family. You want to make sure that they're okay and they can transition into the next steps and the next journey in their grief journey is what we call it.
Well, that's great. So, you seem to be full service, and also providing the latest, whether it's environmentally friendly or just options. All the options are there, and you can help people decide.
That's right.
So they shouldn't be afraid of coming in and talking about it.
No.
So if someone who's listening doesn't live in York Region, could they still have you
Absolutely, anywhere, and we do get a lot of requests. And we've had people from out west, BC, Alberta.
It's
who,
wonderful.
they've contacted us, and we don't necessarily have to do the service, but there are, because we're so well-rounded in that knowledge. We can help and we can assist with a funeral home they're working with, receive these services.
That's great. So tell people how they get in touch with you.
Well, Facebook is very common.
Facebook.
So Facebook, Roadhouse and Rose. If you can search us at Roadhouse and Rose on Facebook, and I take care of that. Our phone number, website, emails, anything. If you have any questions at all, full contact.
Right.
We'll always
Give us the website then.
www.roadhouseandrose.com.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.